Hey my super talented ones! Today we're going to make this gorgeous tabletop with wood and epoxy resin from Resin Pro. The first and most important thing is to take care of your safety. Protect yourself, especially your respiratory system, because resin releases toxic fumes while working. So make sure to wear a respirator. I leave a link to mine in the description. Check out this beautiful piece of wood I got. Before starting, you need to make sure your wood is properly dried, leveled and sanded. I also want to paint the edges with pearlescent paint, and I mix two colors. By the way, this paint works amazing for color resin. I leave the name in the description. Also, paint carefully and thoroughly and try not to get any on the front side of the wood. Next step, we clear the wood with a damp wipe and prepare it for creating the mold for pouring. I'm using a silicone mold as the base, but you can also use the thick polyethylene. I got some tape from a hardware store and I leave a link to it in the description as well. I'm using this tape to create all my most unique mold, like resin handbag. If you don't see a tutorial, check on my step-by-step process, and a mirror frame also. Use silicone sealant to close the gaps at the bottom where the tape meets to the surface. Make sure to check everything carefully, or else the resin might leak out. It all needs to be sealed tightly and neatly. I mix up some clear resin for a thin layer to lay down and stick the wood. If you pour it all at once, the wood will flow up. Once the layer has hardened, I mix the resin for the main pour. I'm using resin that can go up to 5 cm thick from Resin Pro. And don't forget, 90 room, 10% discount. Make sure to read the instruction carefully and mix it precisely. If you are pouring a thick layer all at once, leave a fan on overnight to cool it down so the resin doesn't overheat. And guys, important thing, be careful with the coloring, as not all pigments work well with the tabletop resin. If the pigments don't mix properly and there are clumps, strain the resin through a cloth. After that, pour it into the mold and let it sit. Then comes another layer and the most fun part, sanding. After the color layer is dry, I top it off with the clear resin to avoid staining the wood with the pigment and let it dry completely. Once everything has set, carefully remove the mold while wearing gloves. To make it easier to remove, you can spray it with a release wax before pouring the resin. If you remember, I do it in the video. Take a close look at the finished tabletop. If there are any uneven spots, heat them with a hairdryer and trim them with a knife. Then, move on to the sanding. It's important to understand that for a clear sanding job, you need to remove dust after each sanding disc. I start with a 120 grit disc and work up to 4000. If you want to polish, you need to sand all the way up to 8000 and then polish. However, I'm going to cut it with the final layer of epoxy resin and smooth out the edges to create a caramel finish. Alright, I clear the tabletop with the solvent after sanding and mix a thick resin called Deluxe from Resin Pro. I cut the tabletop and thanks to the smooth edges, the resin dripped down and formed a beautiful caramel edge. Perfectly even, shiny and gorgeous, just the way everyone loves it. I also cut the underside and the beauty is ready. Ta-da! What do you think of the table? If anything unclear, feel free to ask and we'll figure out. Have a nice day. Bye!